Good evening, America, especially to those of you who still believe that when a president of the United States announces a deal, that word should mean something tangible. You know, terms, documents, signatures, timelines, or literally any verifiable substance at all. Something more than a self-congratulatory haze floating across social media like an over-applied cologne. Because tonight, once again, we're watching Donald Trump do what he does best. He manufactures a crisis, he provokes outrage, he rattles allies. Then, once the backlash becomes unavoidable, he announces heroically that he has solved the very crisis he created. And how does he solve it? By inventing a so-called framework for a future agreement that contains no visible details, no commitments, and no evidence it actually exists. And he expects applause. He expects markets to rally. He expects Fox News to amplify the announcement like it's strategic brilliance. And he expects our allies to conveniently forget that, just days earlier, he was threatening them with invasion and tariffs like an unhinged landlord trying to scare tenants into submission. According to the material you shared, Trump backed away from his earlier threats to seize Greenland by force if necessary after those threats triggered global condemnation and a wave of unity against his administration. While attending Davos, he posted a message declaring that a framework had been reached regarding Greenland and the broader Arctic region. He claimed this framework would benefit the United States and NATO and announced that, because of this supposed understanding, tariffs set to begin on February 1 would no longer move forward. In the same post, he named his negotiating team, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and a special envoy reporting directly to him. Now, if you heard that and immediately asked, okay, so what's actually in the deal? Congratulations. Your brain is still wired to expect leadership to communicate in coherent, reality-based sentences, because the entire point of a framework is that it frames something concrete. It's not meant to be a substitute for explanation. And this is where the episode becomes a near-perfect illustration of Trumpism as a governing style. Trump wants deal vibes to replace policy. Watch the pattern carefully. First, he issues an extreme threat: invade Greenland. Take it, seize it outright. Next, allies respond exactly as allies should when the U.S. president starts talking like a 19th century imperialist: outrage, coordination, resistance, solidarity. Then, when consequences appear, Trump declares victory. He announces that a solution has been reached. And that solution always looks the same: a promise of something that might happen later, with no terms, no specifics, no binding obligations, and no accountability. It's the political equivalent of someone screaming, "I'm going to burn the house down," watching everyone grab fire extinguishers, and then posting online, "We have established a framework for future fire safety cooperation." Tremendous. Everybody wins. As your transcript notes, this is fake deal language, framework of a future deal. If consummated, further details will be provided. This is the vocabulary of someone trying to signal success without delivering substance. And then came the inevitable press moment, the one Trump's entire act depends on avoiding. A reporter asked the obvious question, does this deal include U.S. ownership of Greenland, which Trump has repeatedly demanded? Trump's response, according to the transcript, was a shrug wrapped in bravado. He called it a long-term deal, the ultimate long-term deal, and said it puts everyone in a strong position, especially regarding security and minerals. When pressed for clarity how long, what terms, he answered with a single word: infinite. Infinite, a forever deal, a deal that lasts forever. All while making it clear that nothing has actually been signed. This is where the absurdity stops being funny, because absurdity is Trump's camouflage. Infinite isn't diplomacy, it isn't negotiation, it isn't even a conventional lie. It's worse than that. It's a word designed to short-circuit scrutiny by being too nonsensical to debate. How do you challenge infinite? With what treaty, what ratification process, what vote in Denmark, what consent from Greenland, what NATO mechanism, what congressional authority? None of those exist inside the word infinite. Infinite isn't a legal term. It's not a clause. It's a magic incantation Trump uses to try to overwrite reality. Infinite deal, infinite success, infinite applause, infinite amnesia. In a functioning democracy, that should trigger alarms. Because when a president claims to have secured limitless international agreements with NATO allies without documentation, what we're watching isn't governance, it's performance art masquerading as statecraft. The transcript captures another revealing moment. Fox News, Trump's protected media ecosystem, is forced to improvise explanations in real time. After months of echoing Trump's rhetoric about acquiring Greenland, even by force, they're suddenly left trying to interpret infinite deal. They bring on a former ambassador, asking what the framework actually contains, and she admits she has no idea and is waiting to learn more like everyone else. That moment matters. It exposes the machine. Trump speaks. The network amplifies. Trump contradicts himself. The network scrambles to retrofit coherence. The result isn't understanding, it's propaganda whiplash. The objective is never clarity. It's preserving the illusion of competence when competence is absent. Then there's the smaller but telling detail. Trump reportedly confused Greenland and Iceland multiple times during his Davos remarks. When challenged, a spokesperson attempted to spin it by claiming his written remarks referred to Greenland as a piece of ice because that's what it is. Let's pause and absorb that. A sovereign territory reduced to a punchline. This is the level of discourse coming from the White House while discussing NATO security, Arctic strategy, and critical minerals. And we wonder why allies meet without us, why trade blocs form that exclude us, why democracies quietly prepare for a future where American leadership is unreliable. The strategic importance of Greenland isn't mysterious. The Arctic is becoming increasingly vital as climate conditions change. Shipping routes, military basing, early warning systems, space assets, and monitoring Russian activity all matter. So do minerals and supply chains. Serious leaders approach this through partnership, investment, diplomacy, and respect for sovereignty and self-determination. Trump approaches it like a real estate deal: own it, title it, no leases, no shared responsibility. Because as he says, who wants to defend a license agreement? This reveals his worldview. He cannot conceptualize alliances. He cannot understand collective security. He only understands ownership, dominance, and transactions. That's why he treats NATO like a subscription plan. That's why he claims the U.S. pays for NATO and gets nothing back, ignoring the entire post-war order that enabled American prosperity. And when he talks this way, it doesn't just embarrass us, it reshapes incentives. It signals that U.S. security commitments may become conditional or coercive. Pay up or else. And once allies hear extortion, they plan alternatives. The transcript makes this point clearly. Countries are forming new alliances. The USS is being sidelined. America is increasingly viewed as unstable, politically risky, strategically erratic. Stability is a national asset. You can't see it on a spreadsheet, but when it's gone, you feel it everywhere: markets, investment, supply chains, diplomacy, borrowing costs. One of the fastest ways to destroy stability is to turn governance into a personality cult. That cult shows itself in moments like Trump bragging that NATO leaders call him daddy. That's not leadership. That's degradation. And the fact that it's even discussed at serious international forums shows how far standards have collapsed. As Governor Gavin Newsom, quoted in your transcript, points out, Trump's behavior has been normalized. He's graded on a curve. He's held to a lower standard than any other president. And that normalization is dangerous. Because once incoherence becomes style, threats become leverage, contradictions become strategy, and emptiness becomes boldness, the system erodes. The transcript raises another concern: market manipulation through spectacle. Fox proclaims booming markets due to Trump's deal, while Americans struggle with healthcare, rent, mortgages, groceries, and jobs. I won't accuse anyone of crimes without evidence, but the pattern is clear. Trump treats the presidency like a branding tool. He believes confidence can be manufactured through performance. The performance doesn't help families, it helps him. And while he plays imperial theater with Greenland, Americans live in the real economy. The contrast is the indictment. Abroad, the damage accumulates. Canada invests in Arctic defense. European leaders prepare contingencies. Greenland's leadership speaks openly about defending sovereignty. These memories don't vanish. In diplomacy, memory becomes posture. Posture becomes spending. Spending becomes alliances. Alliances become exclusion. Exclusion becomes weakness. So what is Trump actually doing? He's cutting the fuse while claiming he invented fire prevention. He's reversing a threat while pretending it was strategy all along. As the transcript summarizes, I make a bad decision. Chaos follows. I declare it solved. I declare it undo my own mistake. That's not deal-making, that's a con. And the Republican Party has become the stage crew, adjusting the lights, holding the mic, insisting the emperor looks incredible while he stumbles, misnames countries, and announces infinite agreements that don't exist. If they cared about national security, markets, or credibility, they'd be alarmed. But fear of Trump now outweighs fear of consequence. Democrats and the public must treat this as what it is: a governance crisis, not a gaffe, not a vibe, a crisis, because normalization is the runway to escalation. If a president can threaten allied territory and erase it with an imaginary deal, what comes next? Here's the bottom line. This isn't strength. It's bullying followed by theater, threats followed by fiction, tariffs as weapons, diplomacy as humiliation, propaganda as policy. And every time it happens, America shrinks, not because its people are weaker, but because it's being represented by a man who thinks infinite is an answer to questions of law, sovereignty, and international order. We can laugh at the absurdity, but we cannot afford to normalize the danger.